How you doing, Victory Seekers? You're watching Onward with Onrie Live. I'm your host, Onrie Compton. Today, I got an amazing guest for you. She has been all over the map. She has had an extremely accomplished career in comics, just everywhere, all across the board. Crowdfunding, making her own comics, getting it out there in front of people, selling it, doing exactly what I've been doing with Yi-Sun Shin. And today, I'm sitting down with her, and I am going to pick her brain because I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time. So without further ado, allow me to welcome Madeleine Holly-Rosing. How you doing? Rosing. Oh, God. Oh.
That's okay.
Holly-Rosing. I hate when people mess up my name, and it happens all the time, too. I apologize. I suck.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Welcome to the show, by the way.
Thank you for having me. That's very nice. It's nice to talk to. I adore my husband, but it's nice to talk to someone else for change.
I completely understand how you feel. I think I spend more time talking to my 7-year-old son, yelling at my, correcting, doing, teaching him more than I do to. So I appreciate my time with adults very much, especially accomplished comic creators. So why don't you tell us all who you are, what you do, and so that we all know who you are and
Sure.
what you're working on.
I'm the writer-creator of the steampunk supernatural series Boston Metaphysical Society, in both graphic novel and prose form. The original 6-issue miniseries, which is this, is
Beautiful.
about ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist who battles supernatural forces in late 1800s Boston. We did start with a 6-issue miniseries. Art was done by Emily Hugh. And then I started doing sequels. I think after the first sequel, Source Point Press picked up the original 6 issues and reissued those through Diamond last year. And the trade paperback is out right now for pre-order. Which you should order through your local comic book store because we have to support them. They are awesome. And since then, I've had 3 sequels. We finished a Kickstarter for the 3rd sequel in February. And in fact, they actually just came in yesterday. We Ghosts and Demons, our 3rd sequel, and our first ever coloring book, art by Alejandro Lee. And for all of the sequels, the art and coloring was done by Gwen Tavares. And all the lettering is done by the amazing Troy Pateri. So we also have a novel and an anthology of short stories. And there's more to come.
I'm sure there is. And, I love that you give credit to all the people that you've worked with. A lot of times we get so amped up in the actual work itself that we never get a chance to really discuss the people that we work with. So I commend you for making the effort to do this. So Madeleine, I hope I'm saying your name right. I should have asked you before we went live. I apologize.
No problem.
I'm just totally dropping the ball all week long. You're not the first. But I wanted to ask you. So. Tell me, how did you get into this field? What made you a comic book creator and one that has become so you've gotten all this content out there now, and now you have a publisher, you have distribution. I mean, you're basically doing everything that a lot of creators are dying to be able to achieve at some point. And Source Point Press, they're new to the game, but they're not a small dog. Like, these guys are going after it, and they've been working really hard. They are building stuff up. They're getting into movies. They're doing all this kind of amazing stuff. So tell us, where was Point A, and tell us where you are now and on your journey.
Point A, I fell into comics almost accidentally. I have an MFA in screenwriting from UCLA. That's why the hat. My nod towards UCLA, plus the fact that, quarantine, I don't want to do my hair. It's a pain in the ass.
I don't want to do mine either.
Yeah. And I wrote a TV pilot while I was there. that was originally just a sort of like a historical detective, period piece. And a friend of mine suggested, since it was in the late 1800s, that it be set in a more steampunk kind of world. And at the time, I had heard of steampunk, didn't know a lot about it, went and researched it, agreed with him. And the reason behind this was that I would produce essentially marketing material to come back and sell the pilot, which you see a lot of. Basically because people like to look at pretty pictures and not actually read something. But in the process of all this, I discovered that I really love writing comics, and I love the community, pretty much everything about it. So I figured, okay, let's just dive into the deep end here, and we're going, very steadily growing over the past 7-8 years.
And how have you been growing? Because, like I said, I've seen you on the convention front line. Mm-hmm. So has this been are conventions your main source of getting your work out there?
Yes, okay. Absolutely. And obviously you see me on social media.
Of course.
Yeah, try not to overdo it. There's just always this balance between, blasting your work out there everywhere.
I agree so much.
And then not doing enough, because at some point people just become snowblind and they don't actually see what you've posted. So
I agree. And I'm so glad you said that. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just okay. Like, you just hit a point here. It's like, you can promote yourself, but there's got to be a fine line with it, especially when you're doing it digitally, because eventually if you just keep bombarding people, they're going to A, block you, or B, just stop paying attention to what you're doing. Yeah. So it is a very fine line, and you handle it so wonderfully. It's not like I'm at the point where I'm like, Jesus, every other post is something from, the same person, so you're doing something right. Continue, please.
Yeah, well, it kind of helped that in a previous life I was a marketing director.
Okay. Yes, of course. So
I have, as my brother says, I have a few skill sets that other people may not have coming into this. And it's not that I'm an extrovert, because I'm not. I'm an introvert like almost every other writer on the face of the planet. But you do have to learn how to sell, and you have to learn how to sell to yourself. And that's, that's hard, and that's a constantly evolving thing.
How did somebody who is extrovert or introverted learn how to get out there and be extroverted? You talked about this period in your life where you were a marketing director. Mm-hmm. Where did it cultivate from? Because I'm fascinated to hear.
Yeah, I'm not even really sure I know, other than the fact that it was obvious to me, particularly going to cons, that when you looked around at the tables, many people don't engage their audience. They don't engage the people that are at a con. And it is so important to engage them. And that doesn't mean like, here, bye kind of thing. It's like, hey, how you doing? Would you like a bookmark? You want to see something cool? Oh, or just like, hey, I love your hat. Where did you get it? Anything to engage in a conversation. And because you never know where that's going to lead. I've gotten some of my, best friends over the years I've met at cons, because I said like, hey, would you like a bookmark? And they'll go like, hey, sure, I can use a bookmark. And then they're like, oh, would you like to see, the book? And we start talking about the book and this or that or whatever. And you never know how that's going to play out. I can tell you for years, there was I think there was 3 people who used to come to my table and talk at regular conventions. They never bought anything, but I'd always talk to them like, hey, how are you doing? All this or that. And then the trade came out when I first self-published it, and they bought this. This is what they were waiting for. They wanted to see if I was actually going to finish. And some people do that. And I can't say that I blame them, because
I have it happen all the time. All the time.
I mean, how many Kickstarters do you back? And I don't want to.
Nothing ever happens.
But yeah, you get the first issue or something and go like, I love this. This is great. When's the next one? And then you maybe see them at a couple cons and then they vanish. And not to say anything bad about them, because, you know, life happens. You don't know what has happened in their life, that they're not doing this creative endeavor anymore. All I know is that I'm sad that they're no longer doing this creative endeavor, because, you know, I really enjoyed what they were doing. But
yeah, it sounds to me like what you really are focusing on, and I can't imagine the strength it must take for you, because being an introverted person and understanding these very important principles are what sets you apart and allow you to stand out. And I totally commend you for that, because you knew exactly what to do. It's about that engagement, that personal relationship, and being completely understanding of what your customers' needs are. Because even though someone's not buying something today, doesn't mean that can change tomorrow. And I've had incidences where there was a convention I was at a couple of years ago, and this guy he came by and he was talking to me, and you know, he just wanted to see how things were going. And about 20 minutes went by, and I realized, like, man, the time's going. And he told me, he was like, yeah, I don't plan on buying anything today. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I was at another show a week later, and I saw him, and he wanted to come by to like talk for another 20 minutes. And I at this point I had my trade and my single issues out. So I told him, I was really frustrated in the moment, so I probably could have handled it better in retrospect. But, you know, I told him, I'm like, you know, I'm sorry, I got to get to work right now. But, you know, feel free to come back later. But just the way I said it and delivered it, it probably it got him the wrong way. So later on, he was like, you know, don't talk to this guy unless you're planning to buy something. And, you know, it's a very fine line, but you seem to have such a strong hold over it and composure, and being that, you know, you are alone with yourself so much, writing and everything, that must be a very difficult thing for you. Like, I mean, or is it? I mean,
you know, for me, I've been doing the con life now for 7 years, and I enjoy it overall. I cut back quite a bit. A couple years ago, I was doing up to like 20 cons a year, and
that's a lot.
It is, but you know, when you're first starting out, that's what you got to do. You got to get yourself out there, and it doesn't matter how small the con is, because you just have to start laying that foundation out there. And I used to, the first year, I used to travel with a friend of mine, George Wasall, who did Oh Hell comic.
Yes, and I know George. Yeah.
George is awesome.
He's a great guy. How's he doing these days?
I don't know. He's been off the con circuit for a while, so I think there's some family things he's had to deal with. But you know, we didn't want to spend a lot of money, so we shared a table. You know, we didn't have much inventory, and we did that like for a year until we started building out and our inventory, until eventually we both needed our own tables. And even then, we would travel to, you know, California cons together to help with expenses. Sure. And that, you know, and that worked. And I recommend that to anybody starting out.
Absolutely. You know, absolutely. I do it even now, not even just when you're starting out, just period. Like, why spend more money than you need to? Do you ever have situations where you're at conventions and like talk to a guy and he's like, yeah, my hotel bill, you know, like was like $225 a night. And I like think to myself, like, man, I really hope you're making enough money to like cover those costs. Cause like, I would never, $225 is like my budget for a hotel for like the entire
thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's not worth I mean, if you're going there as a fan, I get it. You know, like, you know, like you got the extra money to burn and you're doing it because you're going on vacation. But like in our cases, we're trying to save as much as we can so we can take as much back home or take more back home.
My husband and I, we call them con hotels.
Yes.
There's a certain type of hotel. It's clean. It's basic. You hope it's quiet.
Yes.
You can sleep at night.
Yes.
And not too far. And you get on, I'm on hotels.com and Choice Hotels.
Yeah.
And I've signed up for every, what I call, you know, frequent flyer restaurant that's out there between Panera and Corner Bakery and Subway, you know, all those apps, because you start building your points and
landmarking, like where you're gonna go. Like that's something I tend to do. I've actually made it even simpler now. But I used to go shop. I usually arrive the night before a convention or like the day, whatever I can get close to it. And then, you know, I always kind of just go back to my hotel, and then I'll take like an Uber to the nearest Walmart and just buy up groceries and do whatever. But since then, I've started actually packing my food in advance and traveling with it. But now I got an even better solution. I'm only going to eat once a day whenever I travel, and I've been kind of like getting my body in ready for that, so that when we go back to conventions, I only have to eat once a day, and I'll save even more money.
I can't do that. I have to eat.
I understand. It takes a lot of discipline, but regardless, you have to do what works for you, and you find, and that I think is a really important thing to do, is to landmark and to know what's going to work for you. Because one thing I know we can both agree with is when you get on the convention floor, you need to be at your best. You need to feel your best, and that's an extremely important point. So you should be getting enough nutrition. You should feel good when you get on the floor.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my husband calls, you know, my blood sugar level binary. So when, you know, it's
my wife has the same issue. You know, it's you gotta every person, every body is different, and when you go and what we do, only if the way I see it, there's a saying in judo that only a few strong men can do judo, and it's true. It's an extremely difficult sport, and I don't even call it a martial art. It is a sport, because you are manipulating weight. You are doing all kinds of stuff, which is not unlike what we do at Comic-Con. You know, it's like we're constantly figuring how to move inventory into people's hands, and it is very much so that. So I think only a few strong people can do what we do. You know, it's extremely hard to know the logistics. So let's take it now to inventory. How do you plan your shows in terms of inventory?
Well, fortunately, I've done enough that I kind of know what I need to take. I know the average of what I sell. And most of the cons I go to, I drive to, so I can always bring a little extra. And just so I have it just in case. And it's like the novel, Storm of Secrets. I sell maybe an average of around 30 of those per con. But
That's excellent. Excellent.
But then I went to Phoenix, and so I had budgeted that, because we decided last year we did Phoenix and Denver, because just scheduled.
No, because they're scheduled a week apart. I was at Phoenix. I didn't get into Denver. Denver's got like a big like X over my face for some reason. I don't know. I went and did the show in 2018, and I applied for 2019. They're like, sorry, we like fuck off. And then for 20, they also told me to fuck off too. So I
keep trying.
I know I'll try. I'll never give up. But anyway,
I think they rotate people in and out.
Sure. I don't take it personally. I'm having too much fun. I apologize. So you were saying you had two shows that were very close together, so you decided to go.
So I budgeted, because it was a big trip. We were bringing it was both of us, bringing lots of food. We were seeing family in Denver. I mean, it was a thing. So I brought, roughly $60. Figured, okay, that should do it. I sold in Phoenix almost all 60.
Well done. And Phoenix is just such a phenomenal show.
And that was just the novel. But that doesn't, that's.
And you certainly didn't have enough for Denver now, because that is a solid show. Yeah. So what did you do?
That was like, and Paul Martinez was there, and he was going to come by and get one for his daughter later, and I didn't have any left. I was sorry, Paul. And for those who don't know Paul Martinez, he does 19XX, the comic.
Uh-oh. We're kind of losing you here. Hold on. Oh. Okay. You're back.
There we go.
Okay. Well, can you repeat what you just said? Because we lost you.
Okay.
It flipped out for a minute. So Paul Martinez.
Paul Martinez from the comic 19XX. I'm not sure how he pronounces it. But yeah, he came by with his daughter, and he was gonna buy the novel for her, but he says, "Oh, I'll come by later," and it was gone. They were gone.
Good for you.
And so he said to me, he says, "Okay," he goes, "That's good and bad," and I said, "Yeah, it's good and bad because you want the inventory to be able to keep selling, but you know, what are you gonna do?
Sometimes shit happens." Yeah. Did you get a book to him somehow? Like, were you able to like send him to your website?
He picked it up at the next con.
Oh, that's great. So it worked out for you then. That's excellent. So, Madeleine, where I really want to pick your brain too is digital marketing, because I really, when we were on that panel with Rob a couple weeks ago, you had a lot of fascinating things to say about it. This is an area that I personally don't feel like I have a very strong grasp on. Like, I've done a couple successful campaigns, but I'm not one of those guys that if I get on Kickstarter, I can just completely blow the lid off. You've had tremendous success with Kickstarter. Tell us about that. Tell us about what your approach has been to like growing your audience digitally, because I think that's a very important component of this, you know.
Well, truth be told, I've run a total of 8 Kickstarters. The first one failed spectacularly, as I usually do. Learned a lot from that, and then re-strategized the whole thing. Basically, what we were going to do, we had self-funded the first 3 issues, and in a 6-issue the original 6-issue miniseries. So we went to Kickstarter thinking, okay, let's try to get the money to produce the last 3 issues and put together the trade. That costs about $25,000, to pay for your artist and coloring. That's not unusual. Unfortunately, I was new to Kickstarter, to that audience, and I hadn't really done what I now understand to be, my pre-launch, what I call pre-launch strategy, which I do all the time now. But we actually did okay. We brought in over 200 backers and made over $7,000.
Wow.
Which first coming from nowhere was a good foundation point.
So what clicked? What changed? What got you from that first? What would you do differently?
The big change was that we did individual issues. We said, okay, we have chapter 3 done. Let's just do a print run for chapter 3, and then we'll include other levels. We'll have 1 and 2 included into it. And then we had a stretch goal. We did well enough that we had a stretch goal to print number 4, which we made. So the people who got in on that, man, they got a deal like for $10.
Absolutely. You're pre-ordering. You're not just pre-ordering the next book. You're getting the next book on top of that. That's a great. Yeah, that's an incredible strategy. I never thought of that.
You got 3 and 4. But that's only because we did well enough that we could do that. Mm-hmm. And then I would ask people, because it wasn't done, obviously 3 was done. And so I asked people, would you be willing to wait till we have number 4 done, and then I ship it all together to save money? And, 99.8% of the people said, yeah, we'll wait and get it all together. And there was maybe a handful of people who said, no, I want it now. And I said, okay, that's fine. Well, boom, it's in the mail. You got it. But what we did was divide up the issues and did to number 6, and then did a Kickstarter for the trade. And that was the first time we made over $10,000 is when we went to the trade. So we kind of broke that barrier with the trade. And then we've been doing, better ever since in one way. And when we went to the sequels, so, you could use that kind of Kickstarter foundation plus an email list that I had been building from the cons as my, what I call essential core email lists to bring people on board, immediately. And
I find that how do you utilize? I'm sorry to interrupt that because I just have questions for you. This is my time with you. I get to ask all the damn questions I want. So when it comes to your email list, I built out this huge email list. I have like 6,000 like people who actually typed in emails. I used to have an iPad at conventions, and I just spent years like just racking them up.
That's great.
Those emails do nothing for me. It's great, but they do nothing for me. Like
I have a question.
Why is that?
Have you been contacting these people on a regular basis?
Yes,
do you have a
newsletter?
Course.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a newsletter.
I do have a newsletter. I did have a newsletter. And whenever I have like a Kickstarter, I do everything. They just do not. I either find that every time I send a mass email, I either lose a bunch of those people who signed up.
Yeah.
Or I don't get anything. And especially around Kickstarter time, I pull out those email lists because like I have to, that's my arsenal. That's like, I got to shoot them out there. But I feel like that real estate agent who's like putting in the brochure in everybody's mailbox so that 1% of the people will respond. And I hate that feeling because like I really, like you, I spend a lot of time building that relationship with my customers. But yet when it comes to digital marketing, particularly emails, it's just not my strong suit. So I'm just wondering, what do you do and how has it worked for you? How do you make it effective for you?
Well, I can tell you the master of the email list is Russell Nolte, by far. He is the master of all this. But what I've done, which is actually very similar to what he's done before I realized he was doing all this, I have different types of email lists. I have a core email list, which is, people who I'm 99% sure that most of these people are going to back a campaign. And these were funneled down through the years. It's not a huge one.
How did you structure it? Do you have categories when you're taking people's emails lists? Like, how do you remember after like being at a convention all day, like whose email goes into?
Yeah, it's a little, I don't have to do that. People, you have an email list. Everyone should have an email sign-up list on their table. And then what I do is when I get home about a couple weeks, I send them an email saying, hi, thank you for stopping by the table. I invite you to join my email list. This is what we do here. Here's the link. But I also tell them at the table that I'm not going to spam them because I don't. My regular newsletter only goes out once a month. And then I said, and if you choose not to sign up for the email, I'm just going to email you whenever something special is happening. There's a big event, a new book, a Kickstarter. And I know one guy who, which means that there's more, who has told me, hey, I don't want the newsletter. I'm just going to wait for that email because I know you're going to send it to me and I don't have to ditz with all this other stuff.
That's how I feel like a lot of my customers are. Like They just don't want to. Like I got one guy who refuses to do Kickstarter, and he comes by. He's one of my biggest fans. He comes by every year. He buys whatever new stuff I have on the table. It's just not a question. But if I need support on Kickstarter, he's like, I don't do Kickstarter, and you understand that,
And that's totally fair. How people do it, and a lot of fans, and this I totally get. I tell them like, oh, the Kickstarter, you can do this or that. They said, no. He goes, I want the fun. It's like a treasure hunt when I come to a con, because when I find you and there's something new, it's exciting for me. So everyone has their own way of doing it.
I agree. And, it's for that reason, I really don't push the conventions I'm going to be at in advance. I just like to be kind of there already because it's just an extra thing that I'm going to post once I'm on the floor anyway. And I'm going to tell people where my table is. I might say something a week in advance, like, hey, I'll be at this show. But, I think part of what we do, the fun of it is when people find us and when they discover like, hey, they got something new out and, they get to drop money with you and it's good for you and them.
I mean, I can tell you, to me, it's totally fun when someone comes up to the table and says, what's new? What's new? Show me what's new. And that is really exciting. And then they go like, okay, I'll get that and that and that. And that's, that's just very humbling.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And it must make your day too.
Oh yeah, and it makes your day, and it's wonderful to see these people. But
how do you handle more just kind of going back to the convention scene?
Okay.
How do you handle rejection? Like, you know, we both go through it, because I can tell you right now, I'll be the first to admit it, I get far more rejections than I get sales.
We all do.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you take it? Someone brashly tells you no and walks. Brashly, is that even a word? Brashly, something like
or
that.
Harshly, or whatever.
Harshly, someone that, you know, someone's an asshole to you, and I could give you plenty of examples, and I'm sure you can give me plenty of examples. But how do you handle it? How does it psychologically? How do you handle it? How do you get yourself back into that frame of mind? Like, okay, I got a mission to do. I got to focus. You know.
You know, this is when I come back to film school, that I think almost all creative people should go to film school, because when you're writing scripts, you have your ass handed to you on a regular basis. You get used to it. And the comments that are personal, you learn to ignore. You just let them wash right over you. And then if someone comes to you with a constructive criticism, then that's great.
I think it's more welcoming in a writing atmosphere than it is in person. One's like, you know what? I think that the way you sell your books could be better if you do this or that. And it's like, you know, I don't feel like that's constructive. I feel like it's just like you're being a dick, you know, but please continue.
I've never had that happen to me.
Oh, I get it. Everybody loves to teach me, but I like to learn. So that's okay. I invite it on myself, but please.
I mean, early on, well, I used to study how people set up their tables. And I would talk to other vendors, and they go like, wow, I really like this whole vertical thing. And they said, yeah, you got to do vertical. And I go like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I mean, before I even did my first con, I went to Kamikaze before it mutated into something else. And
I was there on the first year. It was a good show. Stanley, I was right across from Stanley's daughter. He walked down the aisle and stuff. I got to like talk to him for a minute. It was cool. But go on. Yeah.
And I had a notebook, and I had bookmarks, and I was introduced by one gentleman. He says, go talk to Barbara Dillon over at what used to be Fanboy Comics, and now it's Fanbase Press, excuse me. And I introduced myself and said, you know, would you guys be interested in doing a review of our first issue? And we talked, and she said, yeah. And, you know, gradually our professional relationship bloomed from that. And I'm a regular contributor for reviews at Fanbase Press now, and have been for a number of years. That's another way to build your credibility. Yeah, and it's also a way for me to learn, because I got to read all these comics that normally, you know, it just wouldn't have time. And so it was a great way to educate myself on comics.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel about this, you know, like us talking to each other. Because, you know, like I said before the show started, like, when would we ever have time to do this? Like, we're always busy at these conventions. You're doing your thing, I'm doing mine. We never get this opportunity, and I really treasure it. I you know, I think this is how I'm learning too. This is all going to make me better at what I do, because how else to learn than from your contemporaries, from people who are doing the same exact thing. You know, we all do something very magnificent that does not get enough credit. And, you know, when we're talking to and learning from each other, it's like you bring all that stuff out there. Plus it exposes me to your work more. You know, it's like I have to stop and pay attention. And I'm like I told you before the show started, I have every intent of buying and reading your book on Kickstarter campaigns prior to launching my next one. I find it required reading. And the reason I had Russell on the show last week, and I agree with you, Russell, what Russell does digitally is just absolutely phenomenal. Oh, yeah, but it's amazing. I just love the fact that you have a book that speaks to me. And that's how I learn, is when I have a book that's like, you know, that's right in front of me, that has everything that I need, that's going to tell me what I need to know specifically. Because I could read books on, like, digital marketing or whatever, but that's not necessarily like focused and honed in on what I'm doing with Yisun Shin. And I need to up my game in Kickstarter. I will be the first to tell you, I'm not pleased with any of my campaigns. They're successful, but I know that I can do better. And how else to learn than other people who have had major success? And the problem I have is my books are in production, but my production process is very slow and methodical. It doesn't just I can't just get it out there quick enough. And therefore the problem I feel like I have with my email list is that what am I going to email people? We don't got a book coming out for the next year, so
that's when you do have to be more inventive with your newsletter. I take a different approach to my newsletter. I like to have it kind of light and entertaining. And so I will give people the latest news on, what's going on with Boston Metaphysical, any cons, if I have any cool pictures from cons. But then I'll add fun articles that I've run across that might be of interest to them. And then I add my reviews that I do over at Fanbase, which get a lot of click-throughs. Those seem to be very popular.
Any interest in reviewing my work? I would really appreciate it. I mean that genuinely.
Well, you can send it over to Barbara and
absolutely. Yeah, please put me in touch with her. I would love. I need more reviews. Yeah, I could always use more.
Yeah, they're great over there. And I try not to review friends' books because that can get.
Yeah, you don't want to. You don't want to be too biased.
I don't want to. I mean, unless I already know it's fabulous.
Onrie's a handsome guy, but he's a shitty writer. Or actually, it's vice versa. Onrie's a shitty-looking guy, but he's an excellent writer.
And then I also use it for swaps. Since I have a novel and I have prose stories out there, I have agreements I connect with other authors who want to swap books, who may have specials. And that has been great for sales for the prose side.
And so yeah, that's another thing you got going on too. I'm just completely glossing over it. So you not only have this in comic book format, you have it as a novel. You have it for pretty much every market that you need to. You got kids, you got readers of adults readers, and then you got comic connoisseurs who you're basically getting you have something for everyone. Almost.
I have some ideas of another thing that we're going to branch off into, particularly since the pandemic, and I'm kind of stuck not doing any cons that.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, I hate it. I miss my cons. It really, I knew intellectually that San Diego was going to be canceled. I just knew it. But when I finally got that email, it broke my heart.
You and me both.
It just broke my heart because that made it real.
Yes,
I mean, I knew.
Yes, we both did. But you know what? It will come back. Get out there, and there will be new challenges for us to overcome when that happens. And the more we stick together and the more we learn from each other right now, the easier that transition is going to be. And then when you think about it, here's another plus side. When everything is back to a so-called normal and people are flooding the gates with conventions again, because it will happen. We know that.
It'll eventually happen, yeah.
Of course it will. The world can't operate any other way. We're social creatures. And once we get back into this position, think about how much better we will be for the experience that we gained when we were restrained. And I know that it puts there's a lot of other things to consider because of money and things like that, but and the fact that we just simply can't work or get access to any kind of aid whatsoever, very limited.
Very limited.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I keep throwing you off because I want to hear what you have to say, and I'm worried we're going to run out of time soon. So please continue. You were talking about Well,
I think earlier we were talking about incremental growth.
Yes.
And one of the things I saw early on was, someone may have this fabulous, IP creation going on, But then they said, like, oh, let's do t-shirts. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And they start adding on all this stuff all at once. And then it doesn't sell. And then they're in the hole. And they got this stuff filling up their office. And it's, you know, it's depressing because they put all this money into something that would sell, and it didn't. So my growth, and it really has to do with my budget, has been very incremental in that, okay, what can we, you know, to be able to sell more stuff. For a while, I used to sell tea at cons, and that actually sold because I sold like the.
So you make your own tea?
No, I would buy it wholesale and then have, you know, food grade.
Oh, and just slap your brand.
Yeah. And slap my brand. And I would do my own mix. I had like a black tea mix. I actually have people say, like, you still have some of that black tea mix? I really liked it. But yeah, I don't do that. Because I just needed something else to sell on the table.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I was thinking
inventory.
The same thing.
And that actually worked out well because I'd have a guy who go like, oh my God, I came to this con, but I have to bring something home for my girlfriend. And so they buy tea, and, you know, and that was like $3 or something. And, you know, they were all happy.
Is it tea? I mean, the tea is good, I'm assuming. You wouldn't get like craft tea and like.
No. I would buy it from a wholesale from Adagio.
And, okay.
Yeah, no, it was top of the line tea, all in food grain and food grade bags. And yeah, when I would mix it, you know, I'd have like latex gloves on, and, you know, everything was very, very particular. But what the meaning here of is just to add on something at the time. And, you know, I don't do that anymore, but, you know, that worked for a little while, and then that went away because the inventory grew by another book. And then when I started doing Kickstarters, I looked at my steampunk community and thought, okay, what is going to sell with my steampunk community? And they love like lapel pins and things like that. So I started adding the pins. And so now we've had 6 or 7 different types of pins. So every year now, for every Kickstarter, I do a new pin. And I run a little competition on my Facebook personal page saying like, okay, I'm looking for ideas for pins. Whoever I pick, and if we produce it, you're going to get a free pin, just right off the bat. And I've been doing that for like the last few years, and that's been a lot of fun because it gets hard after a while trying to think of what kind of pin should I be doing. And there's a gentleman that I hire who is a fan, who does the art and the vectoring for me, since I'm like Photoshop challenged.
Yeah, so am I. I suck with it. Yeah, I'm not. And that's another challenge too. So it sounds like you're not just a digital marketer. You're a publisher. You're full-fledged, and you've brought a bunch of different skills. And to be a publisher, speaking from my own experience, you have to develop a lot of different talents very quickly. You have to be your own accountant. You have to be your own financial advisor. You have to be, you know, your own marketing, and you have to be your sales force. You are wearing all these different hats. You also end up having to be your own distributor. So did those skills take time to develop, or were they ingrained in you into was it a corporate culture you were working in, or was it just like you were digital marketing for freelance? Like, how was your?
No, it was corporate culture. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So did corporate culture help you understand, help you hone these skills so that when you set off on your own, you were able to kind of get on the wagon and start, you know, pushing along?
Oh yeah, it definitely helped. And I took classes, marketing classes on branding and internet marketing and stuff when I was working full time. Yeah, the marketing career was actually quite a while ago. But you know, it helped just to know that, okay, you know, to be able to sit down and say like, okay, what's the next step here? And I knew a couple years ago the next step was really to get into Diamond and to find a publisher, but I was very much willing to wait to find the right one. And a friend of mine, Bob Sally, who's the source point. He and I've known each other for quite a while. We met when I was at Boston Comic Con. He messaged me, he says, I really think you should be part of the team. I think you should talk to Travis. And I'm like, okay. So I talked to Travis and we worked it out because I knew there was no way we could make the next step just me. I can't get into Diamond. I can't, you need to partner up.
No, trust me. I know exactly how you feel. Yeah. And it's very true. I self-distributed through Diamond, and they cut me after my third issue because it was just the first issue hadn't even hit the stands, and they already had orders for issue 2. And you need somebody who can get books into retailers' hands in advance. You need someone who has a relationship with these retailers, because if it's just us calling and building out all these relationships, it takes a lot of time. You need somebody who's dedicated. You need somebody who can actually focus on it, because what we do, you can only do so many things. And you could do them all great, but you can only do them.
And the Source Point team, I mean, everybody who's in the field, they're just awesome. They're great. And it's not just about the company that goes and helps, push it, because they do a lot of cons.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And yeah,
themselves. When the first issue was out, was in previews last year. Yeah, it was last year. And it feels like 3 years ago now. That I was on the phone with retailers introducing myself. But it helped to be able to say, it's from Source Point Press in Michigan. And it's not just, a self-published person from California. And because that tells them immediately that, okay, someone has decided to take a risk with me. They have enough confidence in my material to take this risk.
They are a fantastic company. And I'm actually, I managed to convince Travis to come on the show. And I'm going to have him on Monday, May 4th, because I know that you guys are doing a free comic book week to make up for Free Comic Book Day not happening this year. And I think it's an excellent move. You're not the first Source Point Press creator I've had on here. I think by the time Travis comes on here, he's going to realize that I've interviewed a good handful of his creators. And in fact, I've been trying to reach out to Bob Sally to ask him to come on the show. So I hope he gets back to me, because I'd love to have him on here. And
I'm sure he'll get it too. Yeah, it's just scheduling.
Well, busy. No, of course. I think right now we have to be extra patient with each other and understand that everybody's got things going on, and so I have no doubt he'll get back to me, and that I'll get him.
He'll get back.
I'm so glad that you've managed to take something and bring it somewhere that can get you that distribution now, because that was kind of like the approach that was the angle I was going on. I was talking to a couple publishers, and we just couldn't settle on the right deal. And it was really unfortunate. There were no hard feelings there, but I invested so much of my time into Yisun Shin, and part of the reason why I really wanted a publisher is not so much that I was interested in the distribution through Diamond, but I'm interested in seeing more licensing happen. I want to see movies get made. I want to get video games. And you need that bridge. You need those connections, right? Yeah. And I don't have them. After all these years, you would think I had them. But, I'm working on, you need a publisher. That's just plain and simple. The publishers can open up doors that would otherwise be closed. And that's kind of like the angle that or the issue that I'm more interested in working in with publishers. And of course, the distribution aspect is nice too, because you can now go to a comic store and find your work, and know that it's going to be there. Do you have to still, do you still have to call up retail shops, or do they handle everything for you?
Well, now there's really no one to call.
Right. Yeah, that's difficult.
But I did a whole email blast to people I've contacted and to also, what I call cold call emails, to introduce myself and to give them a free download, a digital download of the comic. right now that's, other than social media, that's really all you can do, because folks are they're not in their stores.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, they'll come in, pick up what they need, and then they work from home and drop stuff off at the mail, and that's it. So there's no real regular phone contact, and it would just be difficult, I think, right now.
No, of course. That goes. And you know what? People say, oh, this is the new normal. This isn't the new normal. This is not what is the future of comics. Diamond is coming back, mid to late May. Things are going to start reopening very soon. It's going to be a phase thing. And I have a feeling that eventually people are just going to have to accept the situation for what it is, and that there's only so much that we can do, because part of the whole point of quarantining was to make sure that we didn't overburden the healthcare system.
Correct.
And the healthcare system's not overburdened. They've reported multiple times that they did not end up using nearly as much of the facilities as they needed to. And there's still a threat that it could spike again. But, I think that we're going to start to see easing soon, because there's so much more at risk than just comics. It's every single industry. It's everything. And
it's everything. I think the only healthcare, New York, obviously their healthcare system has been overwhelmed.
Of course. And that was to be expected. So there's a good chance that New York Comic-Con may not happen as a result of that, or maybe just as a result of everything, people just being, extra cautious. But even if, let's say, what I expect to happen is, once we get back to the convention floor, there's probably going to be a limit to how many people can actually be on the floor at once, and it may have an impact on our ability to sell through the inventory we bring. Then again, maybe it's just if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. What difference does it make? Open the goddamn floodgates. And the CDC, from what I understand, when they reopen, they're planning to reopen. They're working towards it, and when we reopen, their intent is to stay open. There's not going to be this whole thing where, we're seeing a second wave, we need to go back before phase one. I have a feeling that once things open, they'll be open, and that's just how life will be.
That's if we do a very slow phase open, so there is no resurgence in the fall. Because I don't know how many people know their history. Spanish flu, 1918. There was a moderate flu outbreak in the spring. People did self-isolate. They wore face masks, not like
yes.
They did everything they were supposed to do. And then it was Armistice Day. And, World War I was over, and everyone wanted to go out and celebrate. So they said, go out and celebrate. Boom.
Yeah, that's when the
second wave hit.
Yeah.
So, if they had waited probably another month, it would have been fine, and millions would have survived. But, Well,
I also think that there's a difference, too. Let's factor this in. That World War I was not a civilian time. This was wartime. And I think that right now, America in general is in a civilian state. Yes. It's much easier for us to go back home and not have to worry about stuff. When you're overseas, what really allowed the Spanish flu to spread was the fact that you had soldiers in trenches who would get sick and would die in the field and would spread the disease over to hospitals and everything, and just completely, it took everybody by surprise. I have a feeling that we've learned our lessons from the past, and this is not the Spanish flu. This is something very different. It's something that I think, and it's not something that I think is going to cure itself overnight. But at the same time, if we look at the numbers and realistically look at how many people have died, not to say that it's and that it's insignificant. It is significant. Every life is precious. But when we look at what it's actually done, after the fact that it's over and said and done, far more people are still recovering from this than they are dying. Yes. So, that's another aspect of this that I think needs to be taken more seriously. I think right now we're being cautious because we don't know, and we're doing it for the sake of other people and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But I think that if we continue to do it without stepping back in carefully, we're going to see a lot more damage done from this that will make the virus itself seem like an insignificant thing. And I think that's the fine balancing act, is where how do we make these steps, and how do we?
It's a hard decision-making process.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But I have a feeling we'll see each other on the convention front soon enough.
Oh, I certainly hope so. It may not be till next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I keep hoping maybe some of the little fall ones will happen, but who knows? Who knows?
But I'm sure your digital marketing experience is allowing you to be a little bit more creative and figure things out. So, like, what have you been doing right now since everything is kind of hit on pause? Not kind of.
Totally.
What has been your focus?
Getting the Kickstarter books in, which
there you go.
Came in yesterday.
Yeah, I saw a picture on your Facebook wall.
Yeah, they came in yesterday. I have a couple things. I think the backer kit's almost done. If you haven't done backer kit, have you done backer kit before?
I have not done backer kit. Please tell me about it.
Okay.
You're like, I'm going to have to school you, son, because you're a fucking dumbass. I know. I'm a dumbass. It's okay.
No. It's worth it, but it's a tremendous amount of work to put it together.
Uh-huh.
And
so what is a backer kit?
Backer kit is essentially adding an online store to your surveys that you send out. So whenever you get a survey from through Backer Kit from a Kickstarter campaign, it'll say, hey, this is what you spent. This is what your pledge is. Would you like to order something else? And you can have
it allows people so it gets you to get stuff. Some residual sales. Yes. Yeah, I didn't do that last time. And the last time I did a Kickstarter was like 2018, and I know backer kits were around then. But I'm sure they've become more prevalent in use since my last campaign.
It's pretty much expected, because I would get questions during the Kickstarter like, oh, am I going to be able to add on XYZ on the pledge manager? Because you always think like, do I really want to do this? But backer expectation is there, and they pretty much expect you to have this, whether it be backer kit or another kind of software, platform behind it. It works. It does a great job. Expect to spend hours and hours and hours setting it up if you haven't done it before. It was a little easier this time just because I'd done it last year. So I realized some of the mistakes I made last year I didn't make this year. And then the things I missed, because they do a review. So I'm going through the review now, and I think there's only one more thing I have to look at. But it's great. And then the main focus probably will be over the next 2 weeks is to get the Kickstarter packages out the door, packaged and out the door. Right now, estimate, I have over like 300, at least over 350 packages that need to go out, probably more. And it's just me.
Yeah, right. It's a lot of, fortunately you have the time, but it's a lot of work. That's 350 books. Packages, not even just books. It's all kinds of shit in each one. Yeah.
And I did it last year. It took about 2 weeks. And
how much do you anticipate this time?
It'll probably take about the same amount of time. Because I'm gonna break it up with the other stuff, because I'm currently in the process of rewriting a novel. It's set in the Boston Metaphysical Universe, but it's a new series. It's set, it's what I call the House Wars, which is the equivalent of my equivalent of the American Civil War, but in the Boston Metaphysical Universe. And it's going to be a trilogy of novels. And so that one is going to go to beta readers, hopefully in the next couple weeks. And I'll talk to my editor and see when she's available.
Excellent.
And then I'm actually, because of all this, it had been suggested to me last year by Eddie Louise, who does Sage and Savant audio play, which is a steampunk audio play that Boston Metaphysical should have audio plays. And I completely agreed with her, but just didn't simply have the time to focus on that. And
there you go. Now that's a new project, a new thing to put out there.
So I'm actually thinking of doing that. I may be running a Kickstarter in the fall for that, but there's a lot to.
That's fantastic.
there's a lot to do. It's just in its bare infancy at this point. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, you'll have a supporter in me. You've got a supporter in me already. And Madeleine, at this point, we're gonna wrap things up. I'd like to give you a moment to tell everybody where they should go, where they can find you, how they can support you. Please take the floor.
You can always find me at BostonMetaphysicalSociety.com, on Facebook, Boston Metaphysical Society Comic, Twitter, MC Holly-Rosing. No, it's M Holly-Rosing. Instagram is MC Holly1. And of course, don't forget that you can pre-order the original trade paperback from SourcePoint, either directly from SourcePoint Press or go to your local comic store, which is what you should be doing. And they will order it either through previews or from SourcePoint Press directly. And once I have Kickstarter stuff out the door, I'll be putting up for sale our third sequel, Ghosts and Demons, and also our all ages coloring book done by Alejandro Lee. And just so I open this so you guys actually see it. Okay, here we go. Oh, there we got a Tesla tank.
That looks beautiful. And, that looks wonderful.
Oh, Alejandro did such a great job.
He did. Absolutely.
I have loved his work and was looking for a project to work on with him. And then when I thought about late last year doing coloring book, contacted him, we figured it out, and off we went. So yeah, he did a great job.
Excellent. My friend, thank you so much for giving me your time today and for letting me pick your brain. I promise you, as soon as this is all over, this episode, I would like to buy your book. So expect a message from me in the coming moments. We're going to get this squared up and taken care of right away. And if you don't mind, if you could personalize it and sign it for me, it would mean a lot.
Okay. You can also pick up Kickstarter for the Independent Creator on Amazon and all ebook platforms. Excellent.
Madeleine, thank you again. Best of luck to you. I have a feeling you're going to be doing some amazing things in the coming months. Whether you're on the convention floor or not, I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on you.
Thank you.
Take care. Of course. No, thank you. It was an honor. Thank you. Well, another great episode. There you have it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Next week, we got a slew of really, really great guests coming on, and I will tell you all about them as of Monday and next Monday. And just keep watching every week. I'm going to be doing this a lot more. I'm starting to get some bigger guests, and I don't know. I still don't know if I figured this out yet, but I'm having fun, and I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm learning a lot from this. I certainly hope you're learning a lot as well. And I'll see you guys next week. Take care of yourselves. Be healthy. Be safe. And as always, onward to victory.